The McDonald's on 5th and Alder was unusually busy that morning. Jessica moved fast behind the counter, juggling orders and apologies, all while glancing back at the red plastic chair in the corner of the lobby, where her daughter sat, bundled in a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Taylor was only 6, pale and quiet, clutching her sketchbook like it was the only thing holding her together. Jessica had no choice but to bring her to work. The babysitter bailed, again, and calling in sick meant losing hours she couldn't afford to lose. "Table 5's still waiting," her manager snapped. "I got it," Jessica called, breathless. That's when he walked in, a man in a navy coat, clean but quiet. No security, no fuss. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. He placed a small order, just black coffee, and sat in the farthest booth. Taylor looked up from her sketchbook. Her eyes locked on the man. Then she did something Jessica didn't expect. She slid off her chair, tiptoed across the floor, and walked straight up to him. Jessica froze mid-pour. "Taylor!" she hissed. But it was too late. Taylor stood next to the man's booth and simply said, "I know you." The man looked at her, confused. "You do?" She nodded, completely sure. "You're my mommy's angel." He blinked. "I'm sorry?" She smiled gently. "You don't remember yet, but I do." The man stared at her, stunned. Jessica rushed over, mortified. "I'm so sorry, sir. She's been sick. She says thing." But the man wasn't upset. In fact, he looked like he'd just heard something he didn't know he'd been waiting for. Jessica gently pulled Taylor back by the shoulders, whispering, "Sweetheart, come on. Let's not bother the nice man." But Taylor didn't resist. She just looked up at the man with eyes that were far too calm for a 6-year-old. "I'll see you again soon," she said softly. Then she turned and walked back to her seat, picking up her sketchbook like nothing had happened. Jessica turned to the man, mortified. "I'm so sorry, sir. She's been sick. Sometimes she talks about angels. She's got a big imagination." But the man wasn't annoyed. He looked stunned. "What's her name?" he asked. "Taylor," Jessica replied. He nodded slowly, then offered a faint smile. "She's got a kind face." Jessica forced a polite chuckle. "Thanks. She gets that from her dad." The man paused. "He's not around?" Jessica shook her head. "Passed away. Years ago." She didn't explain further. No time, no space. The McFlurry machine had just beeped. The man didn't push. Back in his booth, he stirred his coffee without drinking it. The girl's words echoed in his head. "You don't remember yet, but I do." He rubbed his temples. Why did that hit so hard? And why, when he glanced at the mother behind the counter, did he feel something familiar? Like a melody he'd once heard in a dream? When he stood to leave, he caught Jessica's eye. She smiled politely. He opened his mouth to say something, but didn't. He just walked out into the cold. And for the first time in a long time, he forgot what meeting he was late for. Later that night, William sat alone in his penthouse office. The city glowed beneath the glass walls, millions of lights, none of which seemed to touch him. He poured a glass of bourbon he wouldn't drink and stared at the untouched folder on his desk. His assistant had dropped it off earlier. Routine HR inquiry, background checks. He almost tossed it aside until he saw the name. Jessica Lane, the woman from McDonald's. He opened the folder. Single mother, age 32, daughter, Taylor Lane, age 6. No emergency contact. Medical history included something that made his stomach turn. Pediatric oncology. He leaned back in his chair, suddenly cold. That little girl. She was sick. Really sick. He flipped to the employment history. Jessica had applied for multiple roles at Baker Industries over the past 5 years. Receptionist, admin assistant, even janitorial. Every application marked rejected. He swallowed hard. He had never seen her face on any of them. Didn't know her name until today. But now, It felt like the file had teeth. He closed the folder and stared at the ceiling. "You're my mommy's angel." The words haunted him, not because they were sweet, but because part of him believed it, and he hated not knowing why. He opened his laptop, typed Jessica Lane plus Medical Aid Vancouver, and began to dig. He didn't know what he was searching for exactly, but he knew this. He wasn't walking away from this. Not again. Jessica was wiping down tables at the end of a long, blurry shift when the door chimed. She didn't even look up at first, just another late-night customer looking for fries or free Wi-Fi. Until she heard Taylor gasp. "Mommy," the little voice said. "He came back." Jessica looked up, cloth frozen in her hand. Standing by the entrance, snow melting off his coat, was the same man from that morning. But this time, he wasn't just passing through. He was holding a small paper bag, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Taylor. "I brought something," he said, walking slowly toward the counter. He held the bag out to Jessica. "For her." Jessica hesitated, her fingers twitching near the register. Inside the bag, children's vitamins, a small plush bunny, and a folded envelope. She looked up, confused. "Wait, Tomas?" The man hesitated. "Because I think I should have helped you years ago, and I didn't." Jessica stared at him. "Do I know you?" He shook his head. "Not really, but your daughter does, somehow." Taylor peeked from behind her mom and smiled up at him. "You remembered." William knelt slowly. "What's your name, Sunshine?" "Taylor?" He nodded. "That's a beautiful name." Jessica was still stunned. "I don't understand what this is." William stood, quieter now. "I'm trying to figure that out myself." He pulled a business card from his coat. "There's a number on here. Call it if you ever need help. Any kind." Jessica looked down at the card, then at the man walking back into the night. He never told her his name, but Taylor whispered it anyway. "Michael." William sat in the back of his walk-in closet, a place even his assistants rarely entered. Behind designer suits and untouched tuxedos, there was a small safe. He hadn't opened it in over 10 years. Combination, his late wife's birthday. Click. Inside, a metal box. Dusty, unmarked. He pulled it out, sat on the carpeted floor, and slowly lifted the lid. Old photos, hospital bracelets, a worn-out stuffed elephant, and at the very bottom, a letter, handwritten. He unfolded it with trembling fingers. "If you're reading this, it means you made it. But I'm sorry we couldn't finish this life together. Please, find her. She'll have my eyes. She'll need your heart." Emily Williams' breath caught. He pulled out a photo tucked behind the letter, Emily holding a newborn baby. The baby had soft brown curls and tiny hands. On the back, in fading ink, Taylor, 2017. His whole body went cold. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." But it could. And it was. He had been told Emily's child hadn't survived, that there were complications, that he needed to move on. But everything in that box screamed otherwise. He stared at the picture, then back at the business card he had given Jessica. His own name printed on it. William Michael Baker, or just Michael, just like Taylor had called him. His hand shook as he clutched the photo. He wasn't Jessica's angel. He was Taylor's father. And somehow, she had always known. Jessica had just gotten Taylor settled into bed when she heard a knock at the door. It was almost 9 p.m., too late for delivery, too early for trouble. She peeked through the peephole. Him, the man from McDonald's. She opened the door slowly. "Is everything okay?" He stood there, breathing like he'd run through memories instead of streets. In his hands, a photo, crumpled at the edges, trembling. "I need to tell you something," he said. Jessica hesitated. "Okay." He stepped inside carefully. This, he held out the photo. is Taylor, and this is Emily, my wife." Jessica stared at the photo. Her lips parted, but no words came. He continued, voice breaking. "I was told the baby didn't make it, that it was complicated. I wasn't even allowed to see her. Then Emily died, and I broke. I disappeared into the company, the name, the silence." Jessica's eyes began to fill. "Are you saying—" William nodded. "I'm her father, Jessica. I didn't know, but she did." Jessica sank into the couch, hand over her mouth. "I always wondered why Taylor drew stars and wrote the word Michael on everything." William knelt down, his voice barely a whisper. "She remembered what I forgot." Taylor shuffled into the room, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, is he staying?" Jessica looked at William. He looked at her, like a man begging for a second chance. Jessica nodded. "Yes, baby. He's not just staying." She pulled Taylor into her arms, looked at William, and said, "He's home." The next morning, sunlight poured through the kitchen window like honey. Jessica moved quietly, flipping pancakes while Taylor sat at the table, humming softly and coloring stars with her favorite blue crayon. And across the room, still trying to figure out where the coffee mugs were, stood William. He looked different in the daylight. Not like a CEO, not like a stranger, just like a man who was exactly where he was supposed to be. Taylor looked up. "Do you want to see what I drew?" William walked over. "Of course." She held up a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, a woman, a little girl, and a man with gray hair and a big smile. Above them, in big, glittery letters, it said, "My family." William blinked hard, trying not to cry again. Jessica placed a plate in front of him. "She's been drawing that same picture for years," she said softly. "But the third person never had a face, until now." They sat down together, and for a moment, no one talked, because nothing needed to be said. Outside, a breeze lifted the edge of Taylor's drawing, just enough for William to catch a glimpse of one more word scribbled in the bottom corner. "Sunshine." He smiled. "Can I take the day off?" he asked Jessica, half joking. She laughed. "You own half the city. I think you'll survive." Taylor leaned her head on his arm. "You're not going anywhere, right?" William looked down at her, his daughter, and whispered, "Not this time."
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more inspiring stories.